I'm Christina Romer, and I'm the nominee designee for the chair of the Council of Economic Advisors. One of the ways that the president-elect has described his goals for the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act is he wants to create or save 3 million jobs. Right? That's a very concrete way of saying we want to turn the corner and ease as much of the pain as we can. And so one of the things that he wanted was some evidence on, as the plan develops, are we going to meet that goal? And then it even went further, because there are questions about, well, how about the various pieces of the program? Are all of them helping us to meet that goal? Are some better than others? Is there a reason to have a balanced package? So that was something that we looked at. There have been some questions about, well, what would the jobs be like that this kind of a plan will create? What industries will they be in? What kind of people, what demographic groups are likely to get them? And so that was an issue that he wanted us to look at. So, it's a kind of funny thing. It's not something I think that a CEA chair designate would normally do. This is more like my old life as a university professor. It's doing research, but that was something I knew how to do. And it's a joint report with Jared Bernstein, who's an economic advisor to the vice president-elect, and who's also a very important expert on labor market issues. And so it was a nice chance for the two of us, who didn't really know each other, to get together and collaborate and try to answer the president's questions. We worked with a lot of forecasters, both private and public, to get a sense of, all right, what do you think the effect of government spending is? What do you think the effect of a tax cut is? And then put them into the computer and simulate what do we think is going to come out of this? What's it likely to do to GDP? What's that likely to do to jobs? And the important finding there is we do think it will create probably somewhere between 3 and 4 million jobs. Something else that we looked at is the effects of the different pieces of the program, because I think oftentimes people have a sense, well, they can understand that if we invest in green energy, that will make green energy jobs. But sometimes it's not so clear. Why do you have a tax cut in there? Is that really going to create any jobs? I don't see that. And so a crucial part of, I think, our analysis is to point out that absolutely we think when you cut people's taxes, they spend more. And when people spend more, that means people have to produce the goods that they're making. And so those kind of things do have jobs effects as well. Likewise, when you invest money in infrastructure, that makes jobs directly by you hire the people to do the infrastructure, but it also makes some more jobs as they get wages and they start spending it, then the things that they're buying, those create jobs. Another thing we looked at is, well, what kind of jobs are going to be made? So, for example, in what industries would you expect them to be made? And here we had to rely some on certainly private forecasters that have a lot more resources than we do right now, and staffs and things that they can be running these studies. But we found some really interesting things. We do think, obviously, if we're going to do a lot of investment in roads and bridges, we're probably going to create jobs in construction. And absolutely, that's in there. But again, it was a useful exercise, I think, for us and for the president-elect to see, but think about the investment in healthcare and education or state fiscal relief. Those are creating jobs in education and healthcare, not just in construction or in manufacturing, where you might be used to thinking about where's that kind of government spending going to show up. Likewise, if you have a middle-class tax cut, one of the places that shows up is in wholesale and retail trade, because as people start buying things, we need people to run stores again. And so I think that can be important. But so what we find is, though the jobs effects are somewhat concentrated in some industries, absolutely, construction and manufacturing have more than you would get if you just had a completely generic kind of recovery package. But it is pretty broad-based and is going to show up, we think, throughout the economy. The very first email I got when I was announced as a member of the economics team was from a women's group saying, we don't want this stimulus package to just create jobs for burly men. And that's been in the back of my mind as I looked at this and thought about this. And that's where, certainly I've been one of the strong proponents of, the balance of the program, the fact that it does have the investments in education and healthcare, it does have the state fiscal relief, it does have the middle-class tax cuts. All of those kind of pieces are creating jobs in some of the sectors like healthcare and education and retail trade, where women are a larger, or sort of a disproportionately large fraction. And so I think that is an important finding. I think one statistic that I hadn't really been focusing on as much until I got into this had to do what's happened to sort of not so much the number of jobs, but the nature of jobs, because one of the really striking statistics is the number of people who are working part-time for economic reasons, like they're forced to, their full-time job turned into a part-time job. That number that we just got in this morning's report shows since this recession started a year ago, 3.4 million workers have moved from full-time to part-time for economic reasons. And so that was something that I found really striking and led us to think that again is something that's very sensitive to the overall health of the economy. And so as we improve the overall health of the economy, as we get the recovery going, one of the things that we'd expect and hope to see is those people that have been forced into part-time will get to move back to full-time. So it's not just that we're going to create more jobs, but we're hoping better jobs that will serve our population better. As bad as things are, what our parents and grandparents went through 75 years ago was certainly much worse, right? There we were talking about unemployment rates of maybe 25%. Today's number was 7.2, which is terrible. It's just not as bad as 25%. So I don't want to go too far and to say that things are as bad as they've ever been. I think where my knowledge of history has mattered is in making me realize the risks, right? Part of the reason I worry so about how this could spiral out of control and why I've been an advocate for really pushing an advocate for a sensible and strong recovery plan is precisely because we've seen that happen before. I mean, I think one of the things that the parallel to the Great Depression, right, the initial downturn, right, we had trouble in our financial markets and that set off a process where a recession started. And it's seeing that snowball, that as things got worse, the banks got weaker, things got even worse, made me say we've got to stop this thing now, right? Not to let that sort of vicious cycle go all the way to the nightmare scenario. Certainly part of the role that I felt I needed to play in this transition is to be talking about how bad things were and how bad they could get, right? Because I think we did need to make the case for a bold, innovative recovery package. The flip side of that, though, is I think if we take those actions and the kind of actions that are being talked about, I think much good could come of it. So first of all, I think we will turn the corner. I'm a firm believer that government increases in government spending, if you cut people's taxes, you do get the economy moving again. And I think that's a crucial lesson from history and one I absolutely expect to see played out. I think even more important is thinking about the long run, right? This is not just spending for spending's sake. It's because we're trying to be smart about it. We're trying to spend on things that we think will make the economy better. We're trying to get a start on the smart grid so we have a better energy economy. We're trying to rebuild our schools so that we educate a whole, we educate our children better. We're trying to rebuild our infrastructure so that we can be a more productive economy. And I have great hopes that by spending the money now, we're helping the economy today, but I think we're going to be helping it in the future as well. And so I think we can look forward to a healthier, faster growing economy in the future.